God is good. All right, we started last week. Mentioned starting a series about persecution. And of course, last week I mentioned about the prophecy that Jesus gave of persecution, that it would happen, it did happen, and it's still happening. And I'm sure we'll see a lot worse before the Lord comes. And tonight I want to talk about how we should handle persecution. So that's the title, is how we should handle persecution. Looking at next week, I know this may sound crazy, but it's true. The benefits of persecution will probably be what I talk about next week. But tonight is how we should handle persecution. So I want to start off from Matthew 5:38 through 48. Matthew 5:38 through 48. Of course, this is Jesus speaking. He says, "Ye have heard that it hath been said, an eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth. But I say unto you, that ye resist not evil, but whosoever shall smite thee on the right cheek, turn to him the other also. And if any man will sue thee at the law, and take away thy coat, let him have thy cloak also. And whosoever shall compel thee to go a mile, go with him twain. Give to him that asketh thee, and from him that would borrow of thee turn not thou away. Ye have heard that it hath been said, Thou shalt love thy neighbor, and hate thine enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you, that ye may be the children of your Father which is in heaven. For he maketh his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sendeth rain on the just and on the unjust. For if ye love them which love you, what reward have ye? Do not even the publicans the same? And if ye salute your brethren only, what do ye more than others? Do not even the publicans so? Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect." Now I'm going to go back up to where I started and kind of cover this a little bit as I go. All right. I've heard some teach and believe that the eye for an eye was established to keep people from over punishing others. You know, we think of it in a sense, the Bible says an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. So you did this, so I'm doing it right back to you. You know, but it's possible, and it does. You know, I don't know that idea is true or not, but it's very possible that, you know, God was making that command to where if somebody did some small thing, that they didn't get punished far beyond what their punishment should be. And so either way, Jesus is saying, I've got a different philosophy, a different idea for this situation. And of course, last week we discussed the different ways we would be persecuted. And of course, here we have a list of things that Jesus mentioned. Like he said, whosoever shall smite thee on the right cheek, turn to him the other also. And that's a sense of, you know, if we're physically attacked, turn the other cheek. You know, I don't know how much more plain you can get than that. I know I've joked about it. Somebody here, I won't point them out and ridicule them, but popped off one time we talked about this. Run out of cheeks. I've said that before. I've done turned my other cheek. It's on now. Well, that's not the point of that, and like I said, of course, I believe that it was a different point that we were making as far as the lesson, but if especially us as Americans, I'm not going to get into what I think as far as the people trying to take over the Capitol, and some say they weren't really Trump supporters. Some say that they were, other people, Antifa or whatever, trying to pretend to be Trump supporters to make them look bad. But I do think, whether that's true or not, I do think there are some Trump supporters. That doesn't make up the majority, but some that would be that radical. I mean, think about this. Even probably the majority of us, even, I don't know, maybe y'all gung-ho Trump supporters, but I wasn't that great on Trump. And I'd rather had, one of the Bushes or Reagan or, somebody than, yeah. Somebody different, to be honest with you. That's just my opinion, than Trump. But I sure don't want socialism. And so, communism would be right behind that. Matter of fact, I was telling my wife on the way to church, how in the world can the U.S. government tell somebody that hasn't paid rent in a year that you can't evict them? Right. And it's your property. Right. I mean, that goes against our Constitution right there in my book. I'm having to pay mortgage on something and somebody's living in my house that, and this ain't the case, thank God for me, but I do know a friend of mine that is happened to, behind thousands and thousands of dollars, probably on up to into $10,000 by now, that they're out because they cannot evict somebody that refuses to pay rent. And I've had people that rented that didn't pay rent, and you go down there and see their big screen TVs. I think we got some witnesses here that see that. But anyhow, it's, I didn't want that. So really what I'm trying to say is I do believe that there are people in the United States that have all kinds of different views. And we've got to choose between two presidents. So anyhow, the point that I'm trying to make is, yes, I do believe there's some far right-wing, radical, crazy people that would do something like that. But my point is, with these people at this Capitol, it was said that some said, kill him with their own gun, talking about a police officer. I mean, and these are people that are supposed to be for the police officers. And these police officers were only doing their job to keep people from coming into the Capitol. And so that just goes to show that that a lot of times our mindset is, no, you're not going to get over on me. I'm going to kill an innocent police officer because I feel like the voting wasn't fair. That's where we got to be careful in these things. And that's what I'm trying to say is our ego and our ways and nobody's going to hurt me mindset is totally opposite of what Jesus is teaching us when he says turn the other cheek.
I have a question. Is that saying that if somebody hits you on one side, you turn the other cheek? What if they keep hitting you? Do you still resist?
He didn't say it. He didn't say it.
Sometimes Jesus will say, yeah.
I didn't know. I wasn't going to ask
yeah, I know. And of course,
Say the first two's on you.
See, that's what. And then, oh Lord, help us.
Yes.
But really, I mean, the point is to not. This is a deal. I have sayings. At times it's like people that I'll talk to. Because I have a tendency to, maybe be led to the most, I'm trying to say, criminal types or what, and people say stuff like, well, I got robbed, or got beat up, got in this situation. Well, were you on the way to church? What I'm trying to say is things that happened in my life, not pointing at somebody else, but my own life. I had more bad things happen to me when I was doing things I shouldn't be doing than what happened to me when I'm just being innocent. If I'm at the wrong place at the wrong time and something bad happens to me, there's a good chance that, and I'm not saying that nothing bad ever happens to innocent people, but sometimes we put ourselves in that place for that. It's funny is I haven't, while living for God, let me say these last over 14 years now, and really even before that, a big part of that, I haven't had anybody provoke me into a fight. I hope it don't happen. I guess it could, but there's certain there's ways of getting out of things. What I'm trying to say. I think, and I'm not trying to get back into this previous lesson that we had on this topic, but sometimes our resistance and our fight back mentality instigates more into a fight than if we just resisted. I'll put it this way, I probably talked my way out of more fights than I've been in. I don't know if that's true either when I count my junior high years. I got beat up quite a bit. But, there's ways of getting out. But if I push back, if I get hit that one time and I hit back, then yes, there's a very good chance that I'm going to have a big knockout, drag out altercation. But if somebody were to hit me one time and I even give them the opportunity to hit me again, I honestly think most people wouldn't do it. If they see the person's not fighting back, the majority of people wouldn't continue.
Stand there and smile at them after they hit you.
Yeah, that's sometimes scares me. All right, let me find where I was. But this is where I'm going to have a hard one. I'm going to fight against this one harder than that turning the other cheek stuff. Jesus said if we are sued to give more than demanded. He said if you're sued for your coat, give your cloak also. I think that's a hard one for me. But that's what he said. And also it goes on, it talks about if you're compelled, at verse 41, let me go down. Whosoever shall compel thee to go a mile, go with him twain. That word twain means two. And the Roman soldiers would force people to carry something a mile. And generally in this case you think of the Jews, because but have in mind Rome was the world power, the known world power, put it that way, of the time. If you were a Roman citizen, that's why we see a lot about Paul where he says, I'm a Roman citizen, and they're like, uh-oh, we done beat him and we're going to be in trouble. Not knowing he was a Roman citizen. Now, if you was a Roman citizen, you had special rights. You were pretty much like a U.S. citizen here with our rights and things. But, but when you talk about a Jew and all these other people that weren't Roman citizens, they would make them do stuff like this. Here, you can, the Simon, I believe his name was Simon, that had to carry Jesus' cross. He was You know, he was made, that's what this is speaking of here. You carry this. You know, and so Jesus is saying if you're made to go a mile, go two. Go above and beyond.
So
Jesus
it's
said-
twice as much peanut brittle? No.
Get behind me, say. Jesus said we are to do good to those who persecute us. That's what he said. Do good to those that persecute us. Let me go down because I wanted to show you. Yeah, right there, verse 44. But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. I think that's pretty much telling us.
That word persecute, does that mean like if somebody puts you down or something?
It could be.
Okay.
But see, that's one thing to remember, though. It's like I was saying last week, I think it was. You know, if I'm talked bad about because of what I believe, that's persecution.
Big time.
But would I rather be talked bad about or be fed to the lions? Talk bad about me all you want. You know? Let me say something on here. And of course, this probably goes more. I think I may have read this last week. I can't remember. But, you know, in Revelation, it talks about the blood of the martyred saints crying out from under the altar and saying, Lord, how much longer will you wait before you return and bring vengeance on these people? And he said, until your brethren are persecuted as you were. So there's coming another great persecution. Now, I believe that prophecy could be fulfilled because we see it other places. Just because we're blessed where we're not getting persecuted like some countries are. You know, it could still be, there's enough of it that it could be fulfilling the prophecy. But at the same time, I don't put it past it happening to us. I believe it'll be a world persecution. So anyhow, so don't think it's past happening to us. Very well could. But this is, verse 48 is really stands out to me. Be ye therefore perfect, as your Father which is in heaven is perfect. That's not, you know, we as Holiness Pentecostals understand about, you know, dressing holy, living holy, not doing things, not living in sin. But that's not the context that this is talking about. This place where it's calling them perfect is when it's saying to turn the other cheek and love those that persecute you and all this stuff. That's where it's calling us perfect. That is the only place. I think there's one other scripture, but it's referencing the same point of concerning loving others, even our enemies, when it calls us perfect. I don't find any other, and y'all know me, I believe in holiness. I believe in dressing holy. I believe in acting holy. But none of those things is where God says you're perfect. But when it talks about this, is where it gives us the title of being perfect. All right, Luke 23 and 33 through 34. Hit it too early. says, and when they were come to the place which is called Calvary, there they crucified him and the malefactors, one on the right hand and the other on the left. Then said Jesus, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And they parted his raiment and cast lots. And so when Jesus was being nailed to the cross, crucified, tormented for us, he said, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And it's like, well, they pulled out in front of me. I'm going to give them a glare. I mean, this is an example. Jesus was our first example of being compassionate for those who persecute us. I mean, this, you think being crucified is not persecuted? They said something bad about me. They said you Pentecostals don't ever have fun. Just because I don't ever have fun don't mean other Pentecostals don't ever have fun. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But I'm going to repeat this for people in YouTube world. We're recording, however, since we're no longer doing Facebook. But it's like Brother Skaggs said, what do you define as fun? How do you define fun? And that's so true.
That's right.
It is.
Because, you know,
To me, peanut brittle's fun.
yeah.
It
So,
ain't right.
I'm just saying, no, you know.
you know, all right, Acts 7. Acts 7, 59 and 60. It says, and they stoned Stephen, calling upon God and saying, Lord Jesus, receive my spirit. And he kneeled down and cried with a loud voice, Lord, lay not this sin to their charge. And when he had said this, he fell asleep. So, Stephen, a deacon, Brother Skaggs, followed Jesus' example in being compassionate for those who persecuted him. A deacon. We're not talking about an apostle. He prayed for those that were persecuting him. Had compassion on those that were persecuting him. Now I could tell a lot more on this, but I'm saving it for next week. Romans 12, 17 through 21. It says, recompense to no man evil for evil. Provide things honest in the sight of all men. If it be possible, as much as lieth in you, live peaceably with all men. Dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. Therefore, if thine enemy hunger, feed him. If he thirst, give him drink. For in so doing thou shalt heap coals of fire on his head. Be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. So, we are expected to show the same compassion to those who persecute us. My wife gave me a compliment not long ago.
Was she sick?
I'm going to go ahead.
Was she running a fever?
I'm going to go ahead and tell it because he's probably not going to hear this. More than likely, I wish he did, but and there may not be anybody who hears it that would tell him. But one day, my brother-in-law come over to the house, and I didn't even know he was out there. And he had got his. It was after it kind of started to dry a little bit, you know, from the snow we had. And he got his truck stuck back there trying to get hay, and he had his tractor, and he was getting his truck unstuck by himself with a tractor, and I didn't even know. And by the time I realized he was out there, and I go out, and he's acting like a jerk. And, well, he ended up, he had a bale of hay, didn't he? He got a bale of hay with his truck that he had sitting out there. He was needing to take it to his other property that he's got leased. And, he needed some feed. And I was, you know, I'll be honest, I was mad. I come inside. I wasn't going to stand out there and put up with it. I come back inside, and I wasn't really, you know, trying to be all nice to him, but he was needing a bag of feed, and he's already at the house and pulled up and all that. So I went out and got a bag of feed and carried up, put it on his truck, without him even knowing. And of course, it was said, you know, once I got in, I think he might have asked what I was doing or something. But my wife said, "You poured hot coal on his head." And I did. You know, because he was like, "Oh, well, thank you." And, you know, he got all nice all of a sudden, you know. But, you know, I knew that he was already been working all day, hurting, and, you know, he wasn't going to have too good a time walk out there and carry that 50-pound bag of feed. So I did it for him. But I did. I poured hot coal on his head. Now, this is what I want to point out. This is Romans, okay, that we just read. It's the book of Romans, written by Paul. Paul himself, a persecutor of the church, commands us to show compassion towards our persecutors. He knows he persecuted the church. History tells us, not in the Bible, but history tells us that they had to keep changing Paul's guards because he would bring them to conversion. Look at Paul through the book of Acts after he got arrested. It's like, you know, he ministered to the people that, you know, here he was on this ship. And, you know, it's like he's telling them, hey, we're not going to make it. You know, we shouldn't go. God's saying, you know, we're going to be bad. And then once they leave and it gets bad, like he said it would, and the angel appears and tells him everybody's going to be alive. But, you know, and he tells them, hey, he could have used that as a getaway. You know, if he'd followed what the angel said and didn't tell the others, then, you know, maybe he'd be the only one alive. But anyhow. But then when he was on house arrest, He'd sit there and he'd minister to these people, and they'd be converted, and then they'd have to get somebody else to guard him. You know, good deal. So that's how we should handle persecution. Not to say, "Where's my gun?" Not to say, you know. Let's say. Let me say this. What if Joe Biden said, "No church services all year"?
He wouldn't say that. He's a good Catholic. He went to church this morning before he went and got married.
Oh yeah. Well, what if he said that? Well, I don't think I could hold to that. I don't know how we'd handle it. I mentioned it. I don't remember if it was last week, maybe, but I've mentioned recently that maybe I'd have to go from house to house, like the apostles did. I don't know. We'd do something.
Yeah.
But let me say this: even if we decided to just have that, we're going to come here, we're going to have church. I tell you what, we're not going to do. We're not going to each bring our guns.
What?
Yeah, sorry, Brother Skag.
No.
But we're not going to bring our guns and say,
One of them-
"We're having church whether you like it or not." We might say we're having church whether you like it or not and get arrested. But we're not going to take up arms against the situation. And hopefully next week I'll be able to explain why we wouldn't and the benefit of not. Praise God. Well, I've got a song for us. Let me play this song. We'll close. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah.
That's a pretty song.
Jesus,
First time I
Jesus,
ever heard it.
Jesus, Jesus, Jesus.